Hello there, everyone. I am your host, the Sea Monster, and I welcome you all to what I would like to call a first impressions video on Godzilla Minus One. For this video and others like it going forward, the point is to give you guys an idea of what I think of a film initially that had just recently released, and the vid will be used as even reference for any future video in terms of what I would think of said film down the line. Don't expect too much in the way of heavy or significant editing for this video, but I've at least scripted out somewhat here. Anyways, so any and all thoughts and points made regarding this film are made based on the context of having only seen it once in theaters, and those thoughts and points may develop further once I've become more acquainted with the film over time in order for me to do an essay video series proper on it in the future. And believe me when I say that an essay video series on this film is inevitably going to happen. For this video though, at least for the time being, as of this recording, I'll just go ahead and say that I found this film to be pretty fantastic. It's certainly the best entry in Toho's Reiwa era of Godzilla films, though that's not a high bar to clear given this era's track record up to this point. However, it may very well even stand down the line as one of the best films in the entire franchise. Now, perhaps these declarations may be a bit hyperbolic once we start looking at things in retrospect. But whatever hyperbole that may be apparent certainly isn't unfounded in this case. And so for this video, we're going to discuss why that's the case. With that said, let's just get right into it. Oh, by the way, spoilers from this point on, so if you have not seen the film and you don't want to be spoiled and you've managed to somehow avoid spoilers up to now, then leave right now. X this out. Go see the film wherever you can, whenever you can. Just go. Go right ahead. Okay, are the people gone? Okay, good. Now, for the rest of you who have decided to stick around because you've seen the film, or if you just don't really care, you just want to hear me talk about anything, really, then let's begin. So to start things off, a little bit of a summary. Godzilla Minus One deals with a story that's set right after World War II as the people of Japan, still in the middle of recovering from devastation as a result of the war, find themselves in the crosshairs of a giant creature called Godzilla, who's essentially out for blood thanks to a nuclear bombing out in the Pacific, i.e. Operation Crossroads, with our main human protagonist being a former kamikaze pilot named Koichi Shikishima, who not only has to deal with his PTSD, but also the emergence of this giant threat. The film boasts a strong thematic core about the precious nature of life itself and how the chance to live it, and to even save it, is worth protecting, and it is built on the foundation of an emotionally rich, nuanced, and excellently crafted story set during a time when people within it feel as if their country views them as just expendable commodities. And all that stuff pretty much ties in very, very well. There's definitely going to be more elaboration of this point, in my future essay video, I promise. I'll say, but let's just say there's that thematic core. It's very apparent, and it's executed very well, as a whole. And the things that really keep this thing together would be the characters, who really lend to the film's thematic through line, which is built on a rock-solid foundation of development that is both logically sound and very much earned. For instance, our main protagonist, Koichi Shikishima, a former kamikaze pilot who flew away from a mission in fear of death, Shikishima finds himself scarred with PTSD as well as survivor's guilt when that same fear of death caused him to fail to save his fellow military personnel from the attacks of Godzilla, who starts out as not much more than a vicious dinosaur-like creature before becoming mutated by radiation as a result of Operation Crossroads. Once he returns home by the end of the war, Shikishima finds his family torn apart by the fire bombings which occurred in Japan, in the mainland, and finds himself disgraced for not fulfilling his duty to die for his country. Even when he meets a young woman named Noriko with an infant named Akiko, who the two of them would go on to take in as an adopted daughter of theirs. Shikishima struggles to come to terms with needing to move on and start living as opposed to dwelling in the past, to the point of edging towards being suicidal in certain scenes. However, Noriko helps him in getting on track to taking the right steps forward, such as when she tells him that she lost her family to an air raid during the war, only for their last words to be for her to go forward and live because of how truly valued her life is. However, the emergence of a mutated and rageful Godzilla brings back Shikishima's PTSD and even threatens his loved ones. Things hit a turning point when Noriko was seemingly killed during Godzilla's attack in the Ginza district in Tokyo. The woman who represented a light guiding him through a dark period, Shikishima becomes driven by vengeance, a death wish in order to slay Godzilla, even if it's at the cost of his own life. He even turns to an initially and understandably reluctant Tachibana, a sole surviving mechanic from Godzilla's attack in Odo Island back in the beginning of the story, for help by providing him a fighter plane fitted for a kamikaze attack in order for Shikishima to fulfill his mission, as well as to avenge the men whom he failed to save from Godzilla, and Noriko as well. However, many other characters throughout the film tried to discourage him from going through with kamikazing into Godzilla by suggesting that the plan to kill Godzilla is put together so that no personnel will have to die to save their country, but their words seem to carry very little sway for him to change his mind. Then the climactic battle, which is reminiscent to Jaws, pretty much ensues, and then, once the mission to kill Godzilla is initiated and progresses into a desperate state, Shikishima finally defeats the monster, without dying, for Tachibana, who has forgiven him at this point, suggested that he should live by ejecting himself out of the plane right before it makes impact, so that he could live to raise Akiko. And this act allows him to not only return to his adopted daughter, but also discover that Noriko, the woman whom he swore to avenge at the cost of his own life, had survived the Ginza attack and was alive all along, and the two tearfully embrace. Though this reunion may not go without a hitch based on a mysterious mark on Noriko which she may have received from Godzilla's attack, hinting at how, much like Godzilla himself in this film, the scars that he left behind may never truly be gone. Koichi Shikishima represents the story's thematic through line in microcosm, and not only is he an excellent character with a very powerful arc, which we see develop throughout the film, with growth that is informed by what he experiences over the course of the story, but his role is one that is incredibly well acted by Ryunosuke Kamiki, especially when his character's pain and survivor's guilt is expressed in certain key scenes. In fact, the cast all around is pretty much excellent throughout this film, so there's that as well. I could go on and on, but we got more of this film to discuss here. Just wanted to point out like an instance of how really well done the story is in this film. Anyways, moving on to Godzilla here. As far as he is concerned, boy howdy is this an intimidating and formidable beast that is characterized as a merciless and rage-filled monster driven by vengeance towards any unsuspecting and unfortunate individuals, regardless of innocence for his radiation-induced mutations, and whatever suffering that he may be enduring as a result. Not only does he lay waste to his surroundings, but he is actively killing people with unflinching fury, from stomping on crowds of civilians running in the streets, to swiping his tail across the ground and swatting them down, to unleashing his atomic breath, which is portrayed as being akin to an atomic bomb, to where the devastation isn't just relegated to his specific targets, like in any other Gojira film, but rather it spreads to everything around the targeted proximity with shockwaves and all that stuff, even creating the haunting visual of a mushroom cloud that harkens back to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He's also shown to have regenerative healing akin to characters like Wolverine from X-Men, which further adds to his frighteningly formidable nature, as well as the stakes for whether or not our heroes will even be able to stop him. The healing is potent enough to where even when he is reduced to a single mound of flesh deep in the Pacific Ocean, he can still come back, similar to the final shot in GMK. And for the frosting on this particular cake, the visual direction and technical fidelity is nothing short of great, and downright astonishing even, considering the film's rather minimal budget of $15 million US. While there are some shots here and there of CGI and or green screen that look just a bit dodgy, especially if one were to notice it on the big screen, they're very much minimal to where they have little to no impact on how well crafted the film is in the technical side of things. Not to mention the action set pieces when they happen, considering how much of a human drama this film is for the majority of its runtime, are very well done with many great character moments sprinkled in and spectacle involving Godzilla doing his thing that actually makes him rather terrifying. The film features set pieces that very much harken back to Jaws, without shamelessly copying it, while maintaining a great level of understanding on what made the set pieces in said film work in terms of providing thrills and tension. All of this is rather impressive in its own right, but it's also very telling how, even with all the money in the world thrown at certain projects in Hollywood, there's you! It doesn't matter how big a film's budget is if it's not used well. The Flash! In the case of Godzilla Minus One, the budget was used extraordinarily well, and if only more studios would actually take note of this and understand and take in all the right lessons on why they need to hire genuinely talented people to make their films if they are to go back on track. But alas, one can only hope. Also, as a bonus, the musical score by Naoki Sato is very well done, perfectly complementing the scenes which its various tracks accompany. From the use of Akira Ifukube's classic themes that are rearranged in a way that I can't help but be reminded of Bear McCreary's work in Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019, but in a good way I must add, to the original, more ambient music made for this film specifically. And so that just about covers everything that we need to cover regarding this film, or at least all the big talking points that I want to cover for it, for this particular first impressions video on it. In conclusion, and in the long and short of it, movie good. Or, for a longer version, Godzilla Minus One is an excellent Godzilla film, and a true return to form for Toho as the progenitor studio of Goji films. From its well-realized, well-written characters and storyline, to its intense and spectacular set pieces, Takeshi Yamazaki and company have put together a film that's going to set the standard for what modern Godzilla projects should hope to achieve, and they should be very much proud of what they've accomplished here. And it's a film which I definitely highly recommend. And with all that said, we have reached the end of this particular video. I would like to thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you all look forward to see what I'll be doing for this film once it's released on home media and becomes more readily available for me to do an essay video series on it. Perhaps it'll end up being a significantly longer reiteration and elaboration of what I just did here, or my thoughts may change or develop more radically once I give the film more viewings down the road, and once I let it marinate in my mind over time. For now though, I hope this first impressions video will suffice in giving you guys at least a rough idea of what I currently think of Godzilla Minus One, and I am certainly interested in doing more vids like this in the future. In fact, at this point, that may happen sooner than later. But with that aside, once again, thanks for watching, and until my next video or series of videos, I will see you all later.